Hello everyone, welcome into Road to Atlanta, presented by Kroger. My name is Brandon Adams, and over the course of the next few minutes, each night this week, we'll take a look at the news of the day as Georgia gets ready to take on LSU in the SEC Championship. Of course, every morning you hear me as a part of Dog Nation Daily, so you can kind of think about this as sort of like a double version of Dog Nation Daily, maybe. Certainly a lot of excitement building towards the SEC Championship. We'll look forward to discussing all of that with you, and of course, we appreciate Kroger for making all of it possible. A lot of our conversation tonight will include both your questions and comments. We'll get to that over the course of the evening. We'll also let you hear later on from Georgia wide receiver Tyler Simmons, who had a big performance against Georgia Tech on Saturday. Georgia linebacker Aziz Ojulari, who will be making his first appearance in an SEC championship game this year for the Dogs this Saturday against LSU. But first, we'll get ready to begin in a moment with Georgia coach Kirby Smart on a number of topics. And let me, set the stage for maybe the most important thing that Smart said today. You know, this morning on Dog Nation Daily, one of the things that we talked about was the various ways in which Smart has been asked about DeAndre Swift's shoulder dating back to the Georgia Tech game on Saturday. And for the most part, every single time Smart has brought this up, his statement about this has been quite consistent, that his belief is that DeAndre Swift would be fine and able to play, and the media, clever as it can be, asking this question a lot of different ways of, are you glad it wasn't more serious than it was? And Smart kind of stuck to his line. On the SEC teleconference on Sunday night, Smart was asked to kind of compare the Swift injury to the one that Kerryon Johnson, the former Auburn running back, dealt with back in the 2017 SEC championship game, where Johnson was clearly not the same player in the title game that he had been earlier in the season. And once again, Smart kind of held to that line that he didn't think that he had anything to worry about with DeAndre Swift, that Swift would be fine for the SEC championship game, essentially downplaying the nature of the injury he suffered against the Yellow Jackets, at one point even going so far as to say that Swift might have been able to go back in the game on Saturday if it had been a different kind of score against a different kind of opponent. If Georgia had needed him, Swift might have been able to do that. But when Smart spoke to reporters today, there was a little bit different reaction when asked about the Swift injury. Now, it could be that Smart's just tired of talking about this, and he's sort of tired of giving any kind of indication about this one way or another. Is there some sort of status change in Swift over the course of the last 24 hours or so? We'll be left to kind of guess on that, but Smart, as you're about to hear, did give a slightly different update. Now, in this same video clip, beyond that, Smart talks about a number of other subjects as well, including the LSU defense, and Smart's belief that this group is actually a good bit better than maybe the national reputation would suggest, and maybe better than Georgia fans have given it some credit for being. He also talks about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the LSU running back, who has been probably another underrated part of that team thus far this season, and he challenges the Georgia wide receivers to step up, given the fact that Lawrence Cager is injured, unable to play against LSU, and George Pickens will be out for the first half, as you know, because of the suspension that he sustained after being ejected from the Georgia Tech game for fighting late in the second half there this past Saturday. So let me let you hear Kirby Smart on all those topics, including off the top here, kind of a terse response when once again asked by DeAndre Swift that we'll all be left to read between the lines on. Then after that, we'll take a lot of your comments. Thanks for being here on Road to Atlanta, presented by Kroger. Hope you enjoy Georgia coach Kirby Smart right now.
It's the next game. I think it's pretty important.
Yeah, we're hopeful that he's going to be able to play.
Kirby, in the film you've seen on LSU, what have they done so much differently defensively to where they're really on a roll now compared to how things looked for them in September when they were giving up a lot of yards and points?
It's not so much what they've done defensively different. They're playing better. They're playing better as a unit. They're rushing the passer. You know, they had a lot of sacks the other night, and they got some packages on third down where they've got linebackers rushing who are really athletic. They're playing better. You know, I think they're playing more with a purpose. And sometimes when you get called out, or maybe you're playing a better team, they played well in some big games. And you know, I don't know where all the criticism comes about their defense. Obviously, probably from the Ole Miss situation, but that was completely unique. I mean, it was unique to Ole Miss. It was very different what they do with the quarterback they have. So that's not something that you just say, well, they struggle against this. That's not what everybody does. That was a very different style offense.
With Cager out and Pickens out for the first half, do you have to add any or give any extra motivation to the rest of the receivers? And what's your biggest challenge to that group for this week?
No, it's very similar to last week. I mean, as far as, hey, guys, you're going to get an opportunity to play. step up and make plays. We had some guys do that. We had some guys catch balls that haven't caught balls in a long time or very little all year, and they made some good plays. And you're going to get one-on-one opportunities when you play in our offense because of the run game. So you got to win your 50-50 opportunities. You got to take advantage of it, and it'll be very similar to last week in regards to not who we're playing, but the guys on the field.
Based on what you've seen so far, what makes Clyde Edwards-Helaire so difficult to play against?
Baller. I mean, he is a football playing machine. When they cut out a running back and say this is going to be a running back, this guy is as explosive quickness, short area quickness. He makes the best football tacklers in our conference miss. So when you got football players that are playing against him from Auburn, Florida, Alabama, and he's making a miss, you get immediate respect with the toughness that he runs with. And I mean, the kid he's got an incredible drive and ability and willingness to break tackles and toughness that I just respect. He plays the game the way it should be played. And you know what? They play him an awful lot because he's really good.
So good stuff there from Georgia coach Kirby Smart. And I think one of the themes that Smart addresses are the underrated aspects of LSU's team. The fact that we pay so much attention to Joe Burrow and the great collection of LSU wide receivers. We probably haven't paid as much attention lately to the LSU running game. At the beginning of the season, this was a Tigers offensive ground attack that was pretty slow getting started. But as of late, it's been much improved, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire is obviously a big reason why. You know, if you are a regular viewer to our content, back during the offseason, our suspicion was that the LSU ground attack was probably going to be led by some of the young players, whether it be a freshman like Ty Davis, who certainly had his moments this year, John Emery Jr., the one-time UGA commit. We thought he might have a big season. It's really been the veteran presence of Edwards-Helaire that's ultimately mattered the most, and probably not enough attention being paid to that. I really believe that the difference in this ball game on Saturday, because we know what the LSU passing game is, right? We know what the Georgia defense is. We know how well it has been at limiting those kind of big plays through the air and really big plays of any stripe this season. That is a storyline that's well documented at this point in time. But the challenge of the Georgia running game, getting off against an LSU defense that has given up some yards on the ground, gave a bunch to LSU a couple of weeks ago, and then limiting the LSU rushing attack led by Clyde Edwards-Helaire, that's one of those storylines that actually is going to, I think, factor significantly in the final score and probably will be discussed overall less than what will be said about Burrow and the receivers and how you go about that. Now, I'd also be curious, I'm going to get a lot of your comments here in just a moment. I'd also be curious to know what you thought of not just what Smart said about DeAndre Swift there, but the way in which he said it. I've got my cell phone in my hand just because we're doing a little bit different setup tonight. I'm going to use this for my comments. Did you notice that for the most part in all those questions, Smart, when he was answering them, was looking directly at the guy or gal who was asking the question, giving his answer. He does kind of go cell phone for a minute, almost like he's checking his text messages as the DeAndre Swift thing comes up, which once again may just be an example of just how tired he already is about being asked this question, but you understand why it's being asked. It's obviously an important storyline for the game, but is there also kind of a poker face tell here? Is that his version of Teddy KGB twisting the Oreos? If you've ever seen the movie Rounders, I honestly don't know, and we'll all be maybe guilty of reading too much into Smart's body language when he's addressing questions like that, but it obviously goes a long way towards determining who wins this game on Saturday. I, for the most part, downplay the significance of individual injuries typically, unless it's a quarterback. The average injury in college football doesn't matter a whole lot typically to the final score. But DeAndre Swift will be a little bit different in that regard. Georgia withstanding the Cager injury is one thing. Trying to withstand an injury to DeAndre Swift if the shoulder truly is banged up and it prevents him from being 100%, that would be obviously bad news for Georgia. So the official word from Smart is shoulder contusion. At one point in time saying he's going to be fine, now saying he's hopeful that he's going to play. It all could be gamesmanship to try to trip up Ed Orgeron, the LSU coaching staff, as much as possible, and I guess we wouldn't fault Smart if that was indeed what he was trying to do. All right, let me get a few of your comments here, and before we do that, I will remind you it's Road to Atlanta presented by Kroger here tonight. And of course, if you go to dognation.com right now, one of the things that you can see right up at the top of the page is some interesting information about some great events coming up with former Georgia wide receiver Muhammad Masquad this week at various Krogers around the North Georgia area, including this Thursday from, is it 4 to 6 p.m. or 4 to 6 p.m. at the Kroger in Bon Air. That's Georgia Highway 96 in Bon Air, Georgia. Going to be there from 4 to 6 here on Thursday. And then the following day on Friday, that's 700 U.S. Highway 29 North in Athens, also there from 4 to 6 p.m. So Muhammad Masquad, the former Georgia wide receiver, one of the great dogs, one of the great stories of overcoming adversity, also going to be at Kroger's around the North Georgia area on both Thursday and Friday. You can find out more information about that by checking out the homepage there at dognation.com. All right, let me do some Facebook comments. We'll do some YouTube comments, and we'll hear from Georgia linebacker Aziz Ojulari here coming up in just a moment. All right, let's find out what's going on here. Alan Verbancic says don't let him play if his shoulder's not completely healed. And obviously, at this stage of the season, few players are completely 100%. And obviously, DeAndre Swift is going to be wise about how he goes about that. The Georgia staff's going to be wise about how they handle that injury as well. And they will certainly think about his health first and foremost before they think about anything else. And obviously, if you take Smart at his word, the expectation is that he will be fine, and maybe hopeful that he will play. Maybe means a little bit more than that. But Alan, I don't think you have much to worry about in terms of Georgia doing the right thing by Swift. They're going to take really good care of his health and make sure he's truly ready to go before that game begins. Let's see what else is going on. Rodney Baxter says that Swift didn't look like he was in too much pain while on the sideline. Kirby didn't want to discuss it further. That last part, you may be right about that. The Kirby did not want just to get into it, and so he kind of gave you the most terse answer possible. And as far as the body language on the sideline, we had a chance to talk to some of the Georgia players about this going back to Saturday, and a lot of them said that he was in good spirits. And I know I talked to James Cook about this. Cook had been close to Swift during that moment. One of the guys, along with Jake Fromm, who was praying for Swift after the injury first took place. And certainly Cook, you can see this video for yourself on the Dog Nation YouTube page. He certainly seemed to report that Swift was in kind of good spirits and feeling pretty good and staying involved in the game. So maybe that is a good sign all the way around. All right, let's find out what else is going on here. Ro Hawkins says, how do you think the Dogs will use everything in the playbook for this game? Yeah, I would say this is probably a kitchen sink game, right? This is one of those games where you throw as much out there as you can and hope you can find that winning recipe to beat LSU on Saturday, Ro. I think that's probably a pretty good point. Mike Riley Jr. says, who will we see more of, White or Cook behind Brian if Swift is really out? Well, I think it'll probably be a combination of both Zamir White and James Cook. We saw those two guys playing together a little bit on Saturday, and they obviously do really different things. And I know with both those guys, White and Cook, Smart has said as recently as today that he'd like to find more ways to get them involved. So if Swift is some reason limited, hobbled in this game, then that does open the door for Zamir White, who is, after all, the nation's former number one running back for the class of 2018, and James Cook, the former all-purpose back who was also an elite recruit himself. So Georgia certainly has plenty of depth, you would think, at the running back position, and it could be a time for that group to shine on Saturday if Swift is either not able to play the entire game or playing and yet not fully healthy. Santiago Dion, remembering back to Kerryon Johnson back in 2017, that's a good example to bring up. There was also a shoulder for him. Smart said on Sunday, though, that he doesn't see these two injuries as being all that similar, so we'll find out for ourselves, I guess, on Sunday. Brett Oglesby talking about Zykevius Walker. Obviously, we'll talk a lot about the recruiting stuff. Jeff Sintel will join me on Dog Nation Daily tomorrow, and of course, we'll have Before the Hedges presented by Kroger Wednesday at 3 p.m. on what is a very busy week for us here around Dog Nation. Michael Campbell certainly excited about the possibility that James Cook could help fill DeAndre Swift's shoes. That'd be a great thing to be able to see. Jeff Boyle says he thinks that Demetrius Robertson needs to be a 5-star recruit. And, one of the things I found to be interesting on Saturday was that when we were watching Georgia playing without Lawrence Cage, it was curious to me about what kind of passing game Georgia used. The hierarchy among the receivers there in that game. And in the first half, Demetrius Robertson was targeted 6 times. Only came away with 2 of those catches, but pretty clearly it seemed like a concerted effort to get D-Rob involved there at that moment. So in terms of Georgia still believing that Robertson can be, as you said, that 5-star prospect and kind of step up in a game like this where his speed could be really valuable, obviously it seems that Georgia still believes that's possible. And I think that Georgia at its best, given its receiving core situation, I think that means a lot of Demetrius Robertson. So I don't disagree with that statement whatsoever. We'll hear from Aziz Ojulari in just a moment. Let me check in on YouTube here, get a few of your comments before we get there. Akeem D says, I have faith in our defense. And I'm sure a lot of Georgia fans would agree with you on that. In fact, one of the main reasons why I think so many Georgia fans are, if not confident that Georgia wins this game, confident that Georgia has a chance to win this game, I think the presence of that Georgia defense is certainly one of the big reasons why on that. I've been saying this now for a couple of weeks, and I'll re-echo this sentiment right now. It is just as hard to score on Georgia's defense right now as it is to stop LSU's offense from scoring. And people don't talk about the Georgia defense enough, not because they don't like Georgia, it's because they don't like defense. Let's face it, offensive football is just more entertaining for TV. Quarterbacks get talked about more than cornerbacks do. Running backs more so than linebackers, and on it goes down the list. Sometimes talking about defense doesn't make for great television, but it certainly makes for a winning recipe, and for Georgia fans, they hope that's true on Saturday. John Dillinger, boy, one of the great criminal minds of all time, I guess, joining us here in the YouTube comment section to say, we got to come out and punch him in the eye first and keep the pressure on Joe Burrow. Yeah, I do think aggressive defensively early to really kind of set a tone on Burrow, but offensively it could be, I think, a little bit different than that. I think offensively, this is one of the things that Georgia's going to look to do, and this will set well with some of you, maybe not quite as well with others. The mentality of keep chopping wood, that idea that Georgia wants to establish the run early and then benefit from that later on, I think that's part of the formula for Georgia on Saturday too. So maybe aggressive and risk-taking a bit on defense, maybe a little less so on offense, because the ability to control the football and establish a degree of physical dominance, I think will be important in this game. It's one of the things that was missing when Georgia and LSU got together last year in 2018. I don't believe that Georgia was the physically tougher team in that game last Saturday. It's one of the things that Georgia looks to reestablish here this week. And by the way, Tyler Simmons, we'll talk about that here coming up in a moment. Before any of those other interviews, let me get a couple more comments here on YouTube for a moment. By the way, good to see Shannon Burgess checking in. Shannon is a longtime LSU fan, but a friend of ours for a while on some of our broadcasts. Kind of checking in here this week. I know he's excited about his LSU team on its way to the SEC championship. One of our former SEC Country Live viewers for a long time there. Mo Morris talking about some of those great defenses that won championships: 85 Bears, the 2000 Ravens, the 2002 Bucks, and obviously Georgia likes to be thought of being a defensive-led team on its way to a national championship there as well. Goated says we need separation big time on wide receiver, and yeah, Georgia's going to be able to create some of that. I'll also kind of remind you about some of the things that former Georgia wide receiver Terrence Edwards has told us about this in the past. And by the way, real quick here, and I'll not try to digress too much, but fun thing on Dog Nation Daily tomorrow, in addition to Jeff Sintel being there, former Georgia wide receiver Sean Bailey going to join us too. Bailey was big in Georgia's 2005 SEC championship win over LSU, and he'll reminisce about that and talk about this team here this week. He'll do that with us tomorrow on Dog Nation Daily, so check in on that. But the point is, Terrence Edwards, when it comes to the Georgia receivers and the need to create separation, as Goated was just saying, he says that don't always think that separation means 5 yards of space. Sometimes it can be as little as 1 yard if the body's positioned the right way, the way that it's supposed to be. That can be enough, and I think that's worth paying attention to, because while the LSU defense, statistically speaking, hasn't necessarily been among the nation's best, Christian Fulton, Grant Delpit, and guys like that truly are very difficult guys to deal with, and say nothing of Derek Stingley, the freshman, who's been kind of all over the field for them. So some of the names involved in that group are guys that you definitely have to be aware of, and you definitely have to work to get open when you are competing against them. It's Road to Atlanta. It's presented by Kroger. My name is Brandon Adams. Thanks for being with us here for this very special broadcast here this evening. We'll hear from Aziz Ojulari in just a moment. Before that, I'll tell you that we're going to do this each and every night. So it's every night on the Dog Nation video channels at 6 p.m., and Thursday, very special live broadcast. We'll kind of get out of the studio there that night. We'll go check out the Kroger at Peachtree Corners once again. Myself, John Stinchcomb will be there. Jeff Sintel will be on hand to talk about UGA recruiting. That all goes down this Thursday at 6 p.m., part of our Road to Atlanta on the road at the Marlows and Peachtree Corners, also kind of a tie-in to our Marlows matchup, which we've been doing on Thursday nights throughout the season. Of course, Friday we'll be back at 6 p.m. again. We'll do that show live from downtown Atlanta after having spent some time at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And by the way, if you want to be with us there for the Marlows event, it's 5210 Town Center Boulevard. That's the address. 5210 Town Center Boulevard in Peachtree Corners. That's the way to be there for us. We'll see you, myself, John Stinchcomb, Jeff Sintel, all on hand at the Marlows and Peachtree Corners for a kind of a combined Road to Atlanta presented by Kroger, Marlows matchup presented by our friends at Marlows Tavern at the Marlows and Peachtree Corners. Let me tell you something. That is a fun location to be at. We had a great time when we were there earlier in the season, and my expectation is it's going to be great once again this upcoming Thursday at 6 p.m. But for now, here on Road to Atlanta, presented by Kroger, let's let you hear from Georgia linebacker Aziz Ojulari. We mentioned Joe Burrow a minute ago and the challenge of stopping him. Ojulari speaks about that in the video you can see at dognation.com. But what you can see right here is the excitement that comes with being in the SEC championship game for the first time. And by the way, we heard Kirby Smart talking about Clyde Edwards-Helaire a little earlier. Ojulari also shares some of his thoughts on the LSU running back here too. So one of the top players for Georgia this season, one of the reasons why the defense has been dominant all season long, is Ojulari. Enjoy him right now as a part of Road to Atlanta, presented by Kroger.
Definitely, this is what you come to University of Georgia for. These games like this is a great opportunity for us in the school to match up evenly with this program and just take advantage of the opportunity.
What's been your impression so far of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the LSU running back?
He's just a great back. He do it all, really catch the ball, juke, don't go down easy, make big plays for the team. So he's a great back overall.
And then this is your first SEC championship game.
Right.
What are your sort of nerves like going into the game in an atmosphere like this?
I feel like it shouldn't be that nervous. Really, it's 50-50. In Atlanta, definitely got our crowd on our side, their crowd on their side. So I feel like it's going to be a great game.
So good stuff there from Aziz Ojulari, talking about the excitement of the SEC championship game. Doesn't sound like he's going to be too overwhelmed by the moment. That has been true for him all season long. That's been kind of the case there. We wouldn't expect anything different from him than that. And boy, what a performer Ojulari's been here this year. Some of the weight that he added during the offseason has really helped him not only be an effective pass rusher for Georgia, one of the best, but also a guy that you can depend on in kind of a run-stopping situation. He's one of those guys that you don't have to take him off the field. Now, Georgia tries to play a lot of guys and keep a lot of guys fresh and loose, but Ojulari has shown the versatility to be able to play in all situations, and so an important player for Georgia's game on Saturday, to say the least. Road to Atlanta here presented by Kroger. By the way, let me tell you this. I know a lot of you are getting ready for a lot of holiday parties this time of year. You have these functions at work or you have stuff around your neighborhood. Let me recommend party platters at Kroger. You know, these start at just $19.99 for some really cool things, whether it be like meat and cheese trays or veggie trays or shrimp platters. It's a great way to gather folks together, have a good time around some good food. Of course, Kroger's known for that. They are fresh for everyone. They got some party platters for you right now, starting at just $19.99. So as we head towards the SEC championship game, we're also heading towards the holiday season. I know many of you already came off a terrific Thanksgiving week, and you're looking forward to the Christmas season as well. And of course, the party platters from Kroger are a great way to celebrate when it comes to all of that. All right, I want to get some more of your comments. We'll hear from Georgia wide receiver Tyler Simmons in a moment. One of the things that Simmons will speak about when we hear from him, this is all from today in Athens as this team gets ready for the SEC championship game on Saturday. Georgia finds itself for the first time in a calendar year, in the last 12 months, for the first time, it'll be a point spread underdog. Georgia typically the favorite against virtually everyone in college football, but against LSU, the consensus is on the side of the Tigers right now. Is that extra motivation for Georgia? Tyler Simmons will talk about that here coming up in just a moment. Let's get a few of your comments on both YouTube and Facebook here before we go. Devin Glenn says the dogs are ready to eat. And boy, that's certainly something that a lot of Georgia fans are hopeful for, that they are truly ready to go out there and eat on the game on Saturday, to use the vernacular once made famous by Kirby Smart. Josh Collins says, you sure are betting a lot on Fromm playing well. And so, Josh, here's what I'll say about that. That obviously there have been moments this season where Fromm's performance has left something to be desired. I don't think any of us will deny that. But when you think about what still could be to come for Georgia this season, it's an SEC championship. It's potentially a trip to the college football playoff. And then if Georgia wins that, it's a national championship game. That's 3 more games that stand as a possibility for Georgia this year, which what would become a 15-game season. That's potentially 20% more football than I should say it this way. That's potentially 20% of the season that's still yet to be played. That's a lot of data points. That's a lot of information. That's a lot of time for Jake Fromm to finish writing the narrative about his 2019 season. That is, and in the most important moments, that would go a long way to determining how all this is remembered for Fromm. So yeah, I am going to put some chips on the table about the idea that Fromm plays better than he's played before, because we've seen him play better than he's played in recent weeks. This is not a guy that's forgotten how to play the quarterback position. This is not a guy that suddenly decided that he's not what he once was. This is a guy that's come up big for Georgia. The last 2 years against Florida come to mind. Rose Bowl against Oklahoma. Plenty of big-time throws when it has mattered. And on Saturday, we may see some more of those. And if that continues, and if it's held off into the college football playoff and the national championship game, as I said before, the story of Fromm in his junior season could still be a long way away from being written. With that in mind, let me get some more comments here. Let me pull up my phone once again, kind of get back in here. Green Soldier kind of citing some of the things that Fromm's also done in games where Georgia came up just short against Alabama. That's a pretty good point. Akeem D says Fromm gets done, defense will have his back, and boy, that's certainly true. When you have the defense that Georgia has, that's a real luxury in terms of being able to lean on that group. Good comments continue to roll through here on YouTube. Let me get over here and do some Facebook comments there as well. Let me kind of scroll back to the beginning here. Let's see if we can get some of these. Becky Rutledge supports Jake Fromm. That's great to see. John West feeling very much the same way. Good to see that, John. Chad Thomas Black says this game in Atlanta could be considered a home territory for the Dogs. It was with Auburn. Yeah, Chad, I don't think that's an insignificant storyline. I think you're right about that. You know, you heard Aziz Ojulari a moment ago call it kind of a 50-50 split with the crowd, but it doesn't have to be that way. This isn't Florida where you kind of split this thing up exactly 50-50. There are a small number of tickets allotted to both schools, and then the rest of the stadium is kind of a free-for-all of secondary market and see who can get what and see how many fans can get in. And I don't think the Georgia fans are going to be outspent by LSU fans on this. It's obviously a lot farther for LSU to travel. There is a chance that Georgia does have a bit of a home field advantage on Saturday. I don't disagree with that. I talked about throwing the kitchen sink at this thing earlier, and Alec Locklear says it's the baddest kitchen sink in the land. I like that, Alec. That's pretty good stuff. David Pappas says when it comes to injuries, always plan that everyone's playing, and that could be true. Sometimes it's also true that while guys try to play, they end up not being 100% healthy, and in Swift's case, you hope that's not the case. Good to see Ken Blankenship checking into our comment section tonight. Always great to have him stop by and say hello to us. Laurie Ann Clark checking in to say win or lose. I'm very proud of all these guys. They are champions in my book. Laurie, that's a nice thing to hear you say. Gary Stanley says we need Fromm from last year to show up on Saturday. Maybe that'll be the case. Maybe some of those moments that Fromm's put together in the past will be reminders of what he's able to do on Saturday, although I will say that some of the big throws that were made in the Florida game, you wouldn't mind seeing some of that version of Jake Fromm coming back here there as well. Good comments there on Facebook. We'll get a lot more of those before we're done. I also want to give you a chance to hear from Georgia wide receiver Tyler Simmons. And I thought one of the maybe undercovered storylines from the win against Georgia Tech was the performance of Tyler Simmons, a guy who's been a little bit embattled this year, certainly drawn the ire of some Georgia fans. Maybe not the best season for Simmons thus far, but maybe not the season he was hoping that he would have. But he seems to be getting his game face on at the right time. Played very well, I thought, against Georgia Tech on Saturday. And because of his senior leadership, because he knows the venue, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, so well, a chance to do some big things for the Dogs on Saturday. What's his motivation, given the fact that a lot of folks seem to think LSU is going to win this game on Saturday? Well, Tyler Simmons talked about that a lot more. Hope you enjoy that as part of Road to Atlanta, presented by Kroger.
It left a real sour taste in our mouth, just going out there to LSU and losing like that. That's the last thing that we were expecting. So just going into this game with a chip on our shoulder, just knowing what happened last year. So.
And have you said anything to George after what happened on Saturday and speaking with him at all?
Yeah, I've talked to him a little bit, and I know he took the time yesterday to apologize to the offense, and we just let him know you gotta learn how to control your actions. Now, putting that on film, a lot of people may feel like they can provoke you. That's the last thing you want. So you just got to watch what you put on film.
And then Dominic Blaylock's had some big moments in big games this year. What sort of allowed him to sort of do that and play like that?
Well, he's always calm and collective. He's pretty confident. He knows the playbook, so it gives you a certain level of confidence going out there on the field. It lets you play calm and slow the game down a little bit. So, I mean, he's done a great job at catching the ball, a great job at receiver and punt return for us this year.
So interesting stuff there from Tyler Simmons, including his message at the end for kind of what he's told George Pickens, what George Pickens has told the team. As you know, Pickens won't be available for Georgia the first half of the SEC championship game because of his ejection against Georgia Tech. And that's kind of a hot topic in our comment section, too. Receiver situation all the way around. Caleb Hurto, referencing this on YouTube, says the Dogs have had the worst luck at wideout this year. Guys leaving, getting hurt, and suspended. Just making it to the SEC championship game is a great accomplishment. I'm proud of these Dogs no matter what. Caleb, appreciate you checking in. Riker Dillard also on the subject of how Georgia draws up a offensive game plan for this Saturday, citing the fact that Joe Brady, the current LSU assistant, the Broyles Award finalist, has been such an impact in just 1 year at LSU, and certainly James Coley and the entire offensive staff working together here. They hope to also make an impact on this game, maybe dialing up some offense and some ways to get guys like Tyler Simmons, others involved, and make this a successful day for Georgia offensively. Let me get a few more Facebook comments. We'll get ready to wrap up. Of course, a lot of coverage. This is just one part of it. Each and every night at 6 p.m. for Road to Atlanta presented by Kroger. I'll be back for tomorrow morning on Dog Nation Daily. First, though, a couple of your comments before we get ready to go. Kyle Fold says the usually sure-handed Eli Wolf needs to be targeted more, especially in the first half in the absence of Pickens. Wouldn't mind seeing that as well. Let's see what else. Drew Miller says even when sloppy, the defense stands strong, still under 20 a game. And I think the recipe for this on Saturday is holding LSU under 20 may be too tall of a task, maybe too big of an ask here. But can you hold them to 24? Can you hold them to 27? If you can do that, and Georgia can find 28, which I think there's a chance they can, win this game 27-26, 28-27, 27-24. Something along those lines may be a possibility. Bryce Dixon, good to have you here with us in the comment section. Appreciate you checking in. Becky Rutledge says, we absolutely have to step on the gas in the first quarter instead of waiting until the third quarter. We'll see about that, but also, I hate to bring up bad memories, but there's also the thought of finishing these games strong, which is something in at least last year's SEC championship game maybe you didn't get a chance to see from Georgia. Zach Wilkerson calls it 31-28. Boy, that'd be a great score to be able to see on Saturday. Stanley Keaton says, love all you dogs, do your best, hold your head high. Only one team can win on the scoreboard, he says, but it sounds like he's sporting UGA. Robert Hosea says, are we wearing black jerseys? I guess Georgia could, just given the fact that LSU seems to wear its white jerseys all the time. I think their purple jerseys are frankly pretty sharp, but they wear those white jerseys. They like doing that all the time, so Georgia, I guess, could wear black. My guess is, though, they'll stay where they have been for, the last going on 3 seasons, right there in that locker, in that closet, wherever they keep them. So, yeah, that's pretty much my guess on that. Let's see if we can find 1 or 2 more and get ready to get out of here. B. Hud's excited about the game. Rick Wallace excited about Fromm, expecting big things from him. Jason Murphy says that Fromm's experience is going to pay off. And I think that's a pretty good way to think about this game on Saturday. Nick Controy says, what about thoughts on Coley being original in play calling? So there have obviously been moments in which I feel like that Coley could have had a better year this year. But as the season's progressed, the last couple of weeks, while the offensive results have left something to be desired, the honest truth is I don't know there's all that much I can nitpick as far as the individual play calling goes. Some moments against the Texas A&M and against Texas A&M in which Georgia didn't execute particularly well. Maybe some moments in the first half against Georgia Tech where Georgia didn't execute particularly well. But the actual play calls themselves, I haven't had much of a fault with that. I think the one thing that's going to make me a little bit different than some of y'all, though, is the fact that I really believe that a heavy dose of running the ball in the first half is really important. I do want to see Georgia try to establish that run, which means you have to be patient. Smart has called it stubborn runs before. Sticking with it even when it's not really working. And as long as your defense continues to do what it has been doing and limiting what LSU's doing, even if it requires Georgia playing from a slight deficit for part of the game. We've seen a big Georgia comeback before in the postseason. Oklahoma comes to mind. Hopefully Georgia doesn't need to come back as much in this game, but Georgia's at least shown that's a possibility here. So trying to establish the run, trying to set that standard on Saturday, I think is really important. I look forward to speaking to you about this each and every night this week for Road to Atlanta presented by Kroger. And then Thursday, when we're live at the Marlowe's and Peachtree Corners, which is going to be an unbelievable time to get together and talk some Georgia Bulldogs football. Can't wait to do that with you. Let me show you the address one more time. 5210 Town Center Boulevard. It's 5210 Town Center Boulevard in Peachtree Corners. I'll see you there this Thursday, but it's not just me. It's John Stinchcomb, the former Georgia All-American. It's Jeff Sintel. After all, the early signing period for recruiting begins just a couple of weeks after that. I've seen lots of recruiting questions in the comments section here tonight. Obviously, Jeff will be looking forward to talk about all those with you there on Thursday when he joins us at the Marlowe's and Peachtree Corners for our Road to Atlanta presented by Kroger and a combined Marlowe's matchup broadcast from the Marlowe's Tavern there in Peachtree Corners. That's going to be a lot of fun. I will see you each night this week at 6 p.m., but also tomorrow morning back here at 10 a.m. for Dog Nation Daily. Jeff Sintel will be with me tomorrow. As I said before, former Georgia wide receiver Sean Bailey going to be a part of the program on a special guest. We're hoping to be able to bring you on the show here this week. We'll have more from what has been said by both the Georgia folks and the LSU folks getting ready for this game on Saturday. Can't wait to have all of you be a part of that. Looking forward to doing it with you. Have a great night. Make sure you check out the forum this week too, forum.dognation.com, the website, dognation.com. for everything that Mike Griffith, Connor Riley have going on there. Jeff Sintel, of course, as well. And for me tomorrow morning, whether it's podcast, video, anything else in between, I'll see you here for Dog Nation Daily. Thanks for being a part of Road to Atlanta, presented by Kroger. Look forward to talking to you again tomorrow evening at the same time. Have a good night, everybody.